So what is high achiever burnout? When I looked into the research, I discovered something that completely changed how I understood my own burnout. It turns out that high achiever burnout isn't actually an official medical diagnosis, but researchers have identified a burnout pattern that describes many ambitious, caring, high-performing people actually quite well. And I recognize this in myself immediately. So I've included some references to the research in the show notes below. Now, what if the very qualities that helps us become successful aren't the problem, but the way those qualities slowly become attached to pressure, responsibility, and self-worth? Researchers studying burnout noticed that not everyone burns out in the same way. Now, one group specifically stood out, and they called it the frenetic subtype. Now, these are people who are deeply involved in their work. They're highly committed, highly ambitious, and when demands increase, they don't pull back. They actually push harder. They work longer and they sacrifice sleep, including relationships and then recovery and health. So the defining feature isn't disengagement, it's actually overload. Now, one large study even found that this was the most common burnout subtype amongst hospital workers, and it was strongly associated with working more than 40 hours each week. And that surprised me because I'd always imagined burnout looked like people giving up. But sometimes burnout looks like someone becoming even more productive. Then the surprising part isn't hard work, it's why we actually keep working. And as I kept reading the evidence, another pattern appeared. The researchers weren't simply describing hardworking people. They were describing people with traits like perfectionism, high responsibility and delayed gratification, also competitiveness and compulsive overworking. Now, those are often celebrated qualities. They are the very qualities that help people become doctors and leaders and entrepreneurs, founders, high performers. But here's what really caught my attention. A large meta-analysis study found that simply having high standards wasn't strongly linked to burnout. The stronger relationship came from something else. Feeling like you must never make mistakes, or feeling like other people expect perfection from you. Feeling that you're never quite enough. And that was a completely different way of thinking about success. Now, this is the belief that's changing for me. As I've been reflecting on my own burnout over the last month, I no longer think that my ambition's been the problem. I still care deeply and I still want to improve health and well-being. I still want to help people live healthier, happier lives. And I still want to create meaningful change and impact. But what I'm becoming more curious about is something different. So the conversation happening inside my own mind, like I'll just do one more thing, or they're depending on me, or I can't let people down, I'll rest later. Interestingly, research distinguishes between simply loving your work and something called overcommitment. Now, overcommitment seems to be one of the strongest drivers of burnout. Not because ambition is unhealthy, but because we begin carrying more responsibility than any human being was ever designed to carry. And that's becoming one of the most important questions that I'm exploring. Not how do I become less ambitious or how do I stop caring, but how do I stay deeply committed without making my worth depend on carrying everything? That feels like a very different conversation. So if you're anything like me, perhaps burnout hasn't made you want to stop contributing. Maybe it's made you want to contribute differently. To build a life and work where success doesn't come at the expense of your own well-being. And that's exactly what I'm exploring through these videos. Not just recovering from burnout, but discovering a healthier relationship with work and ambition, and also ourselves. And because this journey can feel quite lonely sometimes, I'm also creating a space for people who are exploring these questions together. So if any of this resonates, you'll find more information in the description below.